with rock on. How's that for a recording? The first words they hear are rock on. I'm digging it. All right, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go straight into the session today. You all should see a PowerPoint on your side. Is that what you all are seeing? Kind of?
Yes. And Josh, you might want to remind everybody that if they're not speaking, to mute.
Yes. Very, very important since we're recording. If unless you have a question, and I'm going to have David.
Quit messing with that.
I'm going to have David and Tom kind of keep an eye out for thumbs and hands so that if you have a question, please feel free to ask. But if you are not asking a question or participating in the dialogue, please make sure you're muted since we're recording this. And if you don't know where that is, there's a little microphone button on the bottom left-hand side that you will want to push. So I think I'm going to be able to see all of you just fine. So today's a little bit different because last week we talked about, let me move this so I can see myself also a little bit better. We're trying a different angle since my group is right in front of me. I can see them and they're seeing all of you in the background and they can see the screen. Let me go back to this. All right. So today we're going to talk about how elders function locally, and just for the sake of discussion, when I look at the word diversity, I'm talking about the grand scope of what it means to be an elder in the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, because I don't look at it as an age or socioeconomic status or any of those things. So for me, diversity is all expressions of how local congregations are going to participate in it. So today we're going to talk about the core responsibilities of elders across congregations, the diverse models. We'll talk about elders in action, and then local perspectives, and then we're going to break up into a breakout session and then kind of go from there. So let's talk a little bit about the core responsibilities of elders across congregations. And before I get into my lecture piece, I just want to remind all of you that are online and here, I'm going to do a little bit of lecture, then we're going to do a little bit of group participation, and then go back and forth. So the idea is that we're not all just listening to me talk for an hour and a half, but there's a lot of information to cover in the aspect of research. So again, just to kind of talk a little bit about what we discussed last week, if my slide would pop up. Oh, no, it's not going to pop up. Cool. There are two places really that we're going to be focusing in on the biblical and traditional elder roles. There's the 1 Timothy passage that we read last week, and then there's a couple other passages that we mentioned, but really, for me, it's the idea of the traditional elder role in our faith tradition that we're going to be talking about specifically. In our faith tradition, in the Christian Church, Disciples of Christ, elders were always designed to guide and lead worship services to foster spiritual growth within the church. That was their whole role. They helped with pastoral visitation. Remember what we talked about last week in the sense that when you're looking at elders and pastors, most of these churches, if not all of them, had bivocational ministers. So they traveled, and you know, I always used to hear it uh, that when you heard pastors referred to in the historical understanding, pastors come and go, but the congregation always stays. While that's painful, it's 100% true. Um, no matter what happens with a congregation, the elders are regarded as and are incorporated in the leadership of the church. Now, the interesting thing is the church governance is always a little bit different depending on which congregation you're in, because as we talked about last week, every congregation from the beginning of our faith movement was what we called independently autonomous. So, um, elders always took a role in leadership, always have, always will. Uh, the issue that we faced is, again, when we talked about last week, is in 1972 we came up with this definition of what it was supposed to have for clergy, but it's the literal definition from First Timothy that we gave to clergy and said, "Thank you very much for your time, elders. We'll ask you for your advice next time." So so let's keep going. So throughout my research, one of the things that I noticed the most was the impact of congregation size. Uh, Depending on how large the church is, depending on the roles of what elders do. Um, so like if I go to Palm Creek Christian Church, for example, in Oklahoma, there may be 20 people in attendance. Half of them are elders, um, and their roles were to take care of the congregation. So they took care of the pastoral visitation and things of that nature. Palm Creek now has a pastor, and their hope is that she will uh, serve the community and do all kinds of cool things. But really, larger congregations require a lot of elders to focus in on administration, while smaller churches focus in on pastoral care and community. Um, our denominational tradition shelp elder roles very uniquely. And interestingly enough, when with my research across the country, every area of the country does eldership a little bit different. So the idea here is that in most small congregations, and notice how I word that, in most congregations, there is a sense of team. Uh, at the congregation that I serve, and and I would argue that we're not a small congregation at this point. Um, they would argue that they are, because they think that if they don't have 500 people in a church, that they're considered small. Uh, but if we were all being honest right now, most of the congregations that are having 25 to 30 people, uh, I would put that in the category of a small congregation. But what we find out is they work really well together in small congregations. They foster community relationships. They have this understanding of each other, where the Stephen ministry works really well for them, and they're really easy to make decisions. So it's kind of a, hey, we see a need, let's fill a need kind of mentality. Whereas in a lot of larger congregations, there's a whole process and things that get in the way, I think, most of the time. In larger churches tend to assign elders to specialized roles. So, like if you're really good at pastoral care, you might be in the Stephen ministry. If you're really into teaching, you might teach a Sunday school class. And if your church still has Sunday school superintendents, um, or if your church still has like a personnel committee, or any of those big things, when you have multiple staff, like anything, I would say anything over six, you start to have the need for business like committees. So elders definitely take on a role there. focused expertise. My brother had spent the last 20 years in an independent church, and the elders were the board. So they took care of all the personnel issues, they did all the other stuff. Whereas in most of the disciples' churches, elders have kind of taken a step back from a lot of that leadership role. But in larger churches, you see that a lot as they management of the church functions into different ways. Now, it's really important, folks. You know, we have to have this conversation. When you we are all from, I'm trying to remember where we're all from. Let me see my group of people here. I'm trying to get back to the participant page. There it is. So I got Belmont, I've got FCC Augusta, I've got a bunch of people from Oklahoma, Nebraska, Kansas,
And Josh, I think there's a few on here from Missouri too.
and from Missouri. Okay, so when you've got this group of people, you're gonna have that scary word diversity. I don't necessarily look at it as a scary thing. It's kind of a beautiful thing if we look at it and we embrace it for what it is. Um, when I work with let's say historically black churches, it's really important to understand that their definition of an elder and the definition that I have may be completely different. They use different words than we do. So, for example, in the Greek, presbyteros, they love the word bishop. Greek do. Greek loves the word bishop or overseer. In the African American church or the black churches, they will say the bishop sometimes as the regional minister, sometimes as an elder, sometimes even as the head pastor of their church. Whereas when we would call them a head pastor or an elder, they will use the phrase bishop, and they're very comfortable with using the word apostle. So the language matters how we do that. When you talk to a Latin American congregation, for example, they are very comfortable with minister and apostle. Bishop comes. It depends on where you are geographically. If you're in Texas, for example, they tend to avoid the word bishop because it sounds too much like their Catholic brothers and sisters. So in Christian churches, I'm wanting you to be very much aware of the diversity of our language as to the role of who and what they play. So so as those that are watching this later can say, oh, okay, so it's important that we are adaptable and flexible, and listen more than react. It's not our responsibility to tell everybody how they're supposed to operate. So, so what I was finding out is as I was doing my research, for example, if you go to the website chaliceresources.com, uh, a lot of the churches that I was reaching out to, like Pine Street or Wildwood Christian Church, I'd say, hey, look, if you could just give me a prayer, these are historically black churches. If you could give me a prayer, that would be really great. Not because I want your prayer, but I specifically heard your prayer online this week and it was awesome. Well, in historically black churches, they don't write their prayers down, and so there was an instantaneous uh, barrier, like, oh, but since I don't write my prayers, I can't participate. I'm like, oh, no. Somebody can record you praying and then you can still upload it to the website and we still have access to it. And it's a beautiful prayer. I really want to be able to share that with others. So let's keep talking about this. Oh, yeah, I want to go back to this. And then I need to see my screen again. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of audience participation. How many of your churches, I'm trying to figure out how I want to ask this question, vote on your elders? I see one thumbs up. I see two thumbs up. I see a couple hands. Okay. If we're going to break out, when we break out into our small group here in a little bit, one of the big questions that I'm going to ask you is, how are the elders selected in your church? Historically, they went with the biblical definition, the First Timothy one specifically. And then they said, okay, if this is what we're going to do, we're going to affirm them. Now, to me, words matter. Um, words matter. I really want to make sure I say that out loud. When you vote on someone, you are saying that this is a democratic process. When you affirm someone, you are recognizing their calling. Now, for example, it's probably taken 9 years for First Christian Church of Perry to understand where I'm coming from with this. And as I'm saying this, I think some of them are even shaking their head as I'm saying this. But when we talk about elders, I'm a very strong, firm believer in we've asked them because we saw the gifts and graces in them. I don't need to vote on them. It's not like they're holding some sort of office. We believe in the priesthood of all believers. Am I right? You can nod so that way I know you're all alive. Yeah, there we go. There we go. There's some faces. And if we do believe in the priesthood of all believers, then we believe that all of us have a role. Elders have a specific role to lead, to teach, to administer, to provide pastoral care. So in a lot of senses, um, it's just like ministry. If not, it is ministry. Um, Alexander Campbell considered himself an elder. Barton Stone considered himself an elder. Walter Scott considered him an elder. When you read any of the stuff that they write, especially in correspondence to each other, oh, dear Elder Barton, it wouldn't be that informal, but oh, dear so and so, Elder yada yada, they always address them as elders. So yeah, it's a piece of status, but it was never designed for us to say, okay, well, church, we have 52 weeks in the year. I need 4 of you to pray at the table every week. And if you can't do it, say so now. If you start out that way, you're going to get what you pay for. My brother used to work for the government, and what he used to say is if you want monkeys, you pay them with peanuts. If I want elders to just pray at the table, that's all I'm going to get. Especially if I ask them. If I start out the process with saying, by the way, all you have to do is pray at the table, I've already shot myself in the foot.
Mm-hmm.
So if we've set this whole thing up as in these things matter, we're not voting on them, we're affirming their callings. And it has to be that way. And we wonder why it's so hard for us to find elders. It's because we've diminished their role. We've said, thank you so much, but all you have to do is this. Hey, you've already got a DP. By the way, that's a designated prayer for all of you online and here in the room. It's called your pastor. And we already know that when we wake up in the morning and you have a fellowship luncheon, we're going to be the one that they're going to ask to pray at the meal. I don't know why. There's a whole room full of people that have the ability to pray, but that's your DP. You already got us. So I don't need 4 more people to just pray at the table. The other thing that's really important as when you are choosing and affirming is that we have to support them. Like this workshop that we're doing right now. By the way, all of you that are watching this right now, that are elders, that are participating in this, you are amazing people. There are so many congregations and so many clergy. Yes, DP does stand for paid Christian. Yeah, sometimes. Um, all of you are amazing people as elders. And it's not that your pastor doesn't feel that way. It's just sometimes they get so overwhelmed that they forget to tell you. And I appreciate you being here and participating in this workshop because I know I'm kind of boring. You know, I get excited and I can talk history all day long, but not everybody gets as excited as I do. So as you're continuing to look at your affirmation, your selection process, then your affirmation process, it's really important to figure out ways that we can support them. When you have your elders meetings, it does not need to be about the business of the church. It needs to be about the business of the church. We're here to pray. We're here to talk about what's going to happen at the church. You're not here to create policy and talk about the budget. If you do that, you need to leave. By the way, if any of you are taking this workshop and you're hoping that I'm going to tell you how to make $1 million, you're on the wrong workshop. My hope here is that I can help you with your congregation about how you choose, how you affirm, and how you support your elders. And by that, I'm really just being selfish and trying to help your churches. So let's keep going. Ah, you would think I know what I'm doing here.
You understand? Oh, yeah. Completely understand.
All right, do I have a question? Just don't want to. I can talk over people on accident. Okay. So now we've selected, we've affirmed, we've created a process of support. It has to be clear. It absolutely has to be clear. It has to, in the elders that you have in the room need to have a shared vision. Hey, James, could you hand that worksheet to Pam? Now, when I say shared vision, gang, this has to be a deep conversation between what the congregation wants versus what you think they do. Does that make sense? This tends to be kind of one of those troubling things that I have seen in it, and it just blows up in your face. It needs to be, okay, we as a church are trying to ... And as an elder, I'm hoping that my role will be able to support that by ... It cannot be the elders only telling the church how they're going to succeed. And it cannot be just the pastor. It has to be a shared vision. And if I can tell you this from the bottom of my heart, it has to be balanced. Let me give you an example. I think you'll all recognize this. How many of you have a really hard time with your schedules and your elders at your local congregations? Nobody has a problem with their schedules and their elders at their church? Like how to create it?
I don't think I understand the question.
So one of the things I found in my research is that a lot of churches have a hard time keeping elders or putting them on a schedule, because the schedule is what everybody focuses in on, not the role, right? So we have 52 weeks of the year. That means we got to have at least 4 elders a month. How are they going to rotate that in such a way that we have enough people to pray? Does that make sense? Okay, I just want to make sure that made sense, Lori. So, does anybody else have a problem with that?
I guess I don't quite understand. Well, we have 2 elders at the table every week,
Uh-huh.
and so we need, given a month, we use 8 elders, and that's what we hope to select and have serve. We don't run into a problem with the scheduling. I think partly because we're such a small congregation, so people just automatically feel like everybody's comfortable if somebody can't meet an obligation at stepping up and stepping in. I do the scheduling, and I don't have any problem with the elders. You know, they might say, "Oh, I'm going to be on vacation in June, so please don't schedule me then, and I'll make it up in July or August."
Yeah, that's
But,
good.
I guess, I don't know. I guess to me, being an elder and serving as an elder is a privilege to me. And I don't know. I guess I just show up.
No, I love that.
We don't have a problem, Josh, because we have a good communication set up between the elders. We make a schedule at the beginning of the year, and if something comes up with one elder, we just call and we work it out among ourselves and cover each other. So we don't seem to have a problem here.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm getting ready to blow your minds. Y'all ready? What if we didn't make a schedule? Now, I want you all to take a deep breath, because I know I just totally exploded your brain. But we are dealing with full-grown adult people that have been called, selected, affirmed, and have been asked as a privilege. I love Gwen's language, to serve. So my question is, why do we go to the extra mile to create a schedule? And I'm just throwing that out there. It's not necessarily, it's a rhetorical question.
I'll answer that.
Go ahead.
Structure.
Okay. FCC Augusta said, because that's how we've always done it. How dare you, Augusta?
No, I don't think it's structure. I think for me, or for my congregation, and I may be wrong, we have people who travel a lot on business and things. And I guess because I make up the schedule, I look at it as a way of making sure that everyone has not always totally equal, but an equal opportunity to serve. That
Yeah,
everybody
and-
has the chance.
Yeah, so you balance the work.
And do I then have to keep a checklist of who is at the table every week, so I know who's been missing from a table, and next time they're there, they need, I don't understand your way of suggesting this.
Okay, let me further explain what I was talking about. When I said structure, we all start out with a schedule. And it's up to the elders, if they are not going to be there that particular Sunday, they trade off with somebody. But yes, in the beginning, we look at it as far as having everybody serve almost the same amount, of time, depending on what's going on.
Yep.
So that's where we start out. Whether it ends up that way or not, that's another thing. But that's the goal, you know, that just like the structure, something to work from. And then update as we go along, if you will.
Yeah, and our schedule accommodates harvest and other things like that. So, you know, and it works out that we communicate with each other, like you said, and we cover each other and don't make that anybody else's responsibility. Because we have a schedule, we have a plan up, it's our responsibility to make sure somebody else is covering for us, and that's never a problem. We're always happy to help each other out. So for us, it's not an issue, but the schedule is just a starting off place.
I agree. So, so most of us here are in, I would say, small to medium-sized congregations. Making a schedule, it always keeps us all engaged. We help out where we are needed. I'm just reading the chat, gang. Lori says, I can't wait to hear what your alternative is to scheduling. Oh, it's not that fancy, but I'm going to tell you in a second. Yeah. And the objective here is we want to balance the workload. That's what that whole point, that bullet point is on there, is that we want to balance the workload. But my argument as a pastor is that, okay, we can make the schedule. Oh, I lost you. Claudia, did you have a thing?
No, sorry, I'm gonna mute.
Oh no, you're fine. I didn't want to mess you up. What I do at our church, and it sometimes works, it doesn't work all the time, is because everybody stresses. I don't like stressors. Like if it's something that causes stress, I just want it eliminated, and we find some other way to do it. So what I did is I said, okay, here's the dates. And my assistant put it all on a piece of paper, and it's sitting in the narthex on the welcome center. And I said, you're adults. You pick out which day you want to come and pray, and then you sign it up. And then once that's done, she puts it in the newsletter to remind them. That's it. That's all I do. Nothing crazy. And then the objective is that they balance their own workload. Because as you all have the same issue, we have harvest, we have people that are traveling all the time. I swear, I feel like everybody goes camping on every weekend, and it's so unfair because they have these really cool RVs, and I have to sleep in a tent. But I'm not bitter. It's another conversation for another day. But that's what I get for being a scoutmaster. The point that I'm making here is that the only thing that we do differently when it comes to making it accountable is that whatever works for your church is what needs to work. But be careful of doing it just because it's the way we've always done it. The schedule has to be as engaging as the selection and the affirmation process. I know that sounds really weird, but we're asking these people to do more than just pray at the table. Yes, I'm making you think theologically. It has to be more than just filling in blanks to have people stand at the table and pray. Do you make a calendar in the same way for pastoral visitation? Lori does. Do others do that?
On our schedule, we also include communion to the homebound.
Good. That's exactly one of the questions I would want us to look at. Now on that one, go ahead, Debbie. You froze again.
The congregation that they're responsible for, and we let them work out their own visitation schedule based on their availability and their congregate's needs. For instance, we have one elder that just regularly every Tuesday and Wednesday calls everyone on her list and checks in with them. And but each elder is allowed to make that call based on the needs of their congregation. So we don't have a set visitation schedule. When I have somebody on my list that's sick or doesn't make it to church, it's my responsibility to find out why and take them communion if necessary. And that's how we handle that.
How many of your churches have your elders leading Bible studies? I don't think that was intended to be crickets. Oh, First Christian Church Augusta does. We do not have that in place. Oh, that's okay. A lot of us don't. But that's a biblical definition of an elder. We have both elders and deacons. Yep, we do too. Now, because I'm focusing in only on elders, the deacon workshop is a whole different experience. No offense, Lori, but elders, they have some really important ideas, and we need elders to be leading in these functions. Part of what happens is our clergy are as burnt out as our elders, and part of it is that it's because we have created only pray at the table, and we've minimized some of their roles. So, for example, I'm not going to ask. I have Fred. I'm going to embarrass you for a second. So I have Fred LaValle in here. He's one of my elders. Fred, he is. If I need somebody to pray really quick, I'll say, "Hey, can you come in and do this?" And he goes, "Yep, no problem." That's what he feels called to, and he said it. And I listened to him. I didn't tell him he was going to do it. I just listened to him. There's another elder in here. Her name's Pamela Lightfoot. She's a phenomenal teacher. Was a teacher, and she feels called. If she feels called to lead a workshop, she'll lead one. Like she's getting ready to do the Bad Girls of the Bible series with the women of the church. Those are gifts, but I don't necessarily schedule them. I just have to. I don't have to. They move and motivate themselves. We just have to open up the world for them, the possibility, more than just praying at the table. I know I'm beating a dead horse here. I'm just wanting you to think outside the box, and I want to get back to this. So we balance the workloads, we adapt to each other's needs.
Right now, the way it's set up is it's usually an elder that'll fill in when the pastor can't be at the Bible study. It'll be the elder that takes over teaching so that we don't have to cancel the Bible study. So we kind of right now that's the way it is because we don't have that many Bible studies going on. We only have one actually. And then of course the elders will be there. So, but no, we don't have an elder that actually leads a Bible study, but we have had.
Yes. And so I'm going to keep going just for the simple oops. I'm trying to find my slide. All right, so here's one thing I want you all to think about. We're getting closer to our breakout sessions. And it's not, I don't have a slide for it. So if you have the handout, it's on there on your session 2 governance styles. Historically, the Christian church has had, it's under your chat window. There's a Word document. It's like the very first thing in your chat window. It said elders workshop. I'm on page 5 if you're looking at that. One of the things that's really hard for us, you don't see the Word document. Let me reattach it. Dum, dum, dum. Boom. And boom, there it is again. Did you get that time? Rock on. So I'm on page 5. Okay. Historically, there's an issue with governance as far as elders. So let me tell you the ugly. The ugly was there was a time the elders were the board.